first thing you want to do whenever you're making a quilt, you need to have a theme, and we need to have the person in mind that you are going to make the quilt for. So, whenever they made my quilt, I was the person they wanted to make it for. The theme was purple. The easiest quilt you can make is a square that has 6 squares. 6, 6, and 6. It's a 9 by 9 size quilt. And so you can use books in order to get ideas to make your quilt. You can get these big books like this one. You can look through it and find the different quilts that are interesting to you, that suit your needs. Different patterns you'll find in there. You need to remember how experienced of a quilter you are, because this one would be very difficult to make, so that wouldn't be one that you would want to make. An easy quilt to start off with is a 6 by 6, 6 by 9 quilt. After you pick out your theme and you pick out the person you want to make it for, you want to design your quilt. This is a quilt that I designed. It's, again, the 9 by 9. You want to draw it out. This is the next step. You want to draw it out. Then when you go to the store, you're going to buy big fabric. It's going to be big like this. You're going to buy all the different fabrics, pieces that interest you and that go along with your theme and the person that you're making the quilt for. Whenever you're going to make your quilt, you need to remember that there are 3 different pieces that go with your quilt. You have the front piece, which is this front piece. Okay, and then you have the middle piece. The middle piece is batting, and that's what keeps you warm. And then you have the backing, and this is what ties all 3 of them together. So that's important to know, because whenever you are buying your fabric, you're going to have to measure your middle piece about 1.5 inches bigger than your front piece. And then your backing needs to be about 1.5 inches bigger than your batting, so it'll all tie in together. So then when you come home, you are going to get your big piece and you're going to lay it here. And since we're going to be making squares about like this, we're going to make long strips like this. We're going to have big long strips. That way it's a lot easier to make our squares. Here's our squares. Okay, so the pieces that you're going to use are your ruler with a straight edge with your lip. You're going to need your roller cutter. It's very important. And you need a flat surface, something that you can cut on that's not going to hurt your table or anything else that you're cutting on. So you're going to get about 2 or 3 different pieces of fabric, because they're all long and they're thick. And you want to lay it here on the 0 and the 1. And you're going to measure it out to the measurement that you wanted. You're going to put the lip on the end of your hard piece. And then you're going to open it, and you're just going to cut it. And you're going to take it and put it over here. And pull this up. Then you're going to measure it again. Do you see how quickly that was, making the different pieces? If I would have been using just one piece, it would have taken a really long time to get my stack. So after you cut your small squares, you're going to put them, all the different types of fabric, in little piles like I've done right here. So you have different piles. And then you want to design your 9 by 9 square. So I would take this one, and then the red one, and then the purple one, and then this one. This is how I want my big square to look. I would design it right here on the table to get me ready for my next step. So here's my 6. This is what I want my first square to look like. Okay? And so then we know this is what it's going to look like. So now I want to find the pile I got this from and put it right here, because this is my sewing area. So then my red is next. And then my purple, and I want to put them in order, the way that I want my sewing to go. it makes my sewing process a lot easier. Okay? So this is what I want my square to look like. It's all in order. I'm going to get this green piece and this red piece. I want to put the pretties to face each other, and then the outside to be on the outside, so that whenever I sew it, you're not going to be able to see the seam. So then you want to sew it together. Put your lip down. And sew back. Pull it off. And there you go. See, you don't see the seam. Then you can get your next piece, which would be purple, because see, here we go. We have the green, then we have the red, then we're going to put the purple on. We're going to put the pretties to face each other, and then we're going to sew it again. And then here's your one side. And then you would just take this side, and you would place it next to this side, and then you would keep sewing. And then you would get all these different big squares, and then here's an example of some big squares that you would get, and then you would sew them together. You would keep sewing them together until it made a big quilt, and then it would look something like this. So all your little pieces, once sewn together, make the front part of your big quilt. After you have your front part, that's whenever you need to go ahead and put your backing on. You want to measure your backing, or your batting, the middle piece, and then you want to add your backing to it and put your needles in so that it all holds together nice and neat. And once you have it all together and it's all measured out nicely, one way to quilt it together, to bind it together, is to put your quilt underneath your sewing machine and start from the middle and start sewing all of it together. This piece is quite time consuming. That's one way you can do it. Another way you can bind it together, like my friends did, is with yarn. They put yarn with their needles, and then they stuck it through on the different squares so that it didn't come apart. And this quilt that I made, my theme was, or the person I was making it for, her name is Janie Lynn Rittenhouse. And the theme was a baby. She's a baby. And so I'm going to go ahead and pass this around, and you can see how I quilted it together. I quilted it together on the different pieces. So I hope that the next time you guys are in a position to make something nice and neat for someone else, that you think about quilting. Thank you so much for your time and patience. Goodbye.